Before the story starts, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.
It was supposed to be a simple garage party. Just music, lights, and close friends. No trouble. No drama. But one woman was watching. She stood behind her curtain, arms crossed, angry face. She hated fun. She hated noise. And most of all, she hated him. Her name was Karen. The self-appointed queen of the HOA. That night, Karen made one phone call. A call she believed would destroy his party. But instead, it destroyed her reputation, her power, and her control forever. Mark moved into the neighborhood on a quiet Monday morning. The sun was soft, the street was clean, and the houses looked the same. White fences. Green lawns. Perfect driveways. It felt like a place where nothing bad ever happened. Mark liked that. He was not a loud person. He did not like trouble. He worked long hours and enjoyed peace when he came home. After years of living in noisy apartments, this place felt like a dream. He parked his car slowly and stepped outside. He looked around and smiled. "This is perfect," he said to himself. Mark was in his early 30s. He was friendly but quiet. He respected rules. He always followed them. He believed rules were there to keep life simple. This neighborhood had an HOA. Homeowners Association. Mark knew about it before moving in. Some people warned him. They said HOA neighborhoods could be strict. But Mark was not worried. He believed if you followed the rules, you would be fine. And he planned to follow every rule. On his first day, he met a few neighbors. An old man waved at him from across the street. A young couple smiled and said hello while walking their dog. Everyone seemed kind. Everyone seemed normal. Everyone except one person. From the window of the house across the street, a woman watched him. Her name was Karen. She stood behind her curtain, arms crossed, eyes sharp. She watched every box Mark carried inside. She watched where he parked his car. She watched how long he stayed outside. Mark did not notice her. He was too busy moving in. Over the next few weeks, Mark worked hard to make his home perfect. He cut the grass every Saturday morning. He watered the plants. He cleaned the driveway. He followed the trash schedule exactly. He even measured his grass height to match HOA rules. He wanted no complaints. And there were none. At least, not from anyone normal. Karen, however, noticed everything. If Mark's trash bin was out 5 minutes late, she wrote it down. If his car stayed in the driveway a little longer, she took a photo. If his porch light stayed on at night, she frowned. Karen had lived in the neighborhood for many years. She was not the HOA president, but she acted like one. She believed the neighborhood belonged to her. Rules were not enough for Karen. She wanted control. Mark stayed polite. One day, while checking his mailbox, he finally met her. "Hello," Mark said with a friendly smile. Karen looked him up and down. "You live across from me," she said coldly. "Yes," Mark replied. "I moved in last month." "I know," Karen said. "I watch this street." Mark felt uncomfortable, but he stayed calm. "Well, nice to meet you," he said. Karen did not smile. "Make sure you follow HOA rules," she said. "We don't allow problems here." Mark nodded. "Of course. I always follow the rules." Karen stared at him for a few seconds, then walked away without another word. That was the moment Mark felt something was wrong. But he ignored it. He believed kindness would fix everything. Weeks passed. Mark lived peacefully. He went to work. He came home. He relaxed in his garage sometimes, listening to soft music while fixing small things. Nothing loud. Nothing late. Still, Karen watched. She noticed that Mark had friends. She noticed that people liked visiting his house. She noticed laughter. And she hated that. In Karen's mind, laughter meant noise. Noise meant chaos. Chaos meant loss of control. One evening, Mark received a letter from the HOA. It said his grass was slightly too long. Mark was surprised. He had just cut it 2 days ago. He measured it again. It was perfect. He shrugged and cut it again anyway. Another week passed. Another letter came. This time, it was about his trash bin being visible too long. Mark sighed but followed the instructions. He did not argue. He did not complain. He believed peace was better than being right. But Karen was not done. From her window, she watched Mark handle every warning quietly. No anger. No reaction. No fight. This annoyed her. Karen wanted confrontation. She wanted power. She wanted Mark to fear her. But Mark kept smiling. One afternoon, Mark helped a neighbor carry groceries. Another day, he helped fix a broken fence. People liked him. Karen noticed that too. And it made her angry. She felt like she was losing control of the street. She began telling other neighbors that Mark was too friendly. She said he might cause trouble one day. She said, people like him always do. But no one listened. Mark had done nothing wrong. Still, Karen waited. She watched. She listened. She planned. Mark did not know it yet, but in Karen's mind, he was already guilty. All she needed was one excuse. One moment. One small reason to strike. And that moment was coming. Very soon. Because Mark was about to plan something simple. Something harmless. Something that would finally give Karen the chance she was waiting for. And when that day came, everything would change. Mark did not plan parties often. He was not that kind of person. He liked quiet nights, simple food, and calm music. But this time was different. This time, he wanted to celebrate something important. He had just received good news from his job. After years of hard work, long nights, and stress, Mark finally got promoted. It was not a huge promotion, but for him, it meant everything. It meant stability. It meant relief. And he wanted to share that happiness. Not with a big crowd. Not with loud noise. Just with a few close friends. So Mark decided to plan a small garage party. Nothing fancy. Just some chairs, soft music, snacks, and friendly talks. Before doing anything, Mark checked the HOA rules. He printed them out. He read them slowly. Then he read them again. The rules said small gatherings were allowed. Music was allowed before 10 p.m. Garages could be used for personal events. Mark smiled. Everything was allowed. Still, he wanted to be extra careful. He planned the party for early evening. He told his friends to park away from the street. He bought small speakers, not loud ones. He even downloaded a noise meter app on his phone. I don't want any problems, he said to himself. Mark believed preparation solved everything. He sent simple messages to his friends. Small garage hangout. Nothing loud. Come early. Respect the neighborhood. His friends understood. They knew Mark. They knew he respected rules. What Mark did not know was that someone else was also preparing. Across the street, Karen noticed everything. She noticed Mark measuring his garage space. She noticed him cleaning it more than usual. She noticed boxes of snacks and drinks. Karen's eyes narrowed. She stood behind her window again, watching like a guard on duty. What is he planning? She whispered. In Karen's mind, gatherings meant trouble. Trouble meant noise. Noise meant police. She opened her HOA notebook. The same notebook she used for years. She flipped pages fast. No parties, no noise, no disturbances, she muttered. She ignored the part about allowed small gatherings. Karen only saw what she wanted to see. The night before the party, Mark cleaned his garage one last time. He swept the floor. He moved tools to the side. He placed chairs neatly. He even put a small sign inside the garage that said, "Please keep voices low." "Thank you." Mark smiled at the sign. He believed respect worked both ways. Outside, the street was quiet. Inside Karen's house, however, anger was growing. She noticed the sign. She noticed the chairs. She noticed the string lights Mark carefully placed inside the garage. Lights. That was it. Lights made it real. Karen felt insulted. "How dare he," she said loudly, even though no one was listening. She believed the neighborhood should stay exactly the same. Silent. Boring. Controlled. And Mark was changing that. On the day of the party, Mark came home early from work. He wanted everything ready before sunset. He checked his phone. Messages from friends started coming in. "On the way. Be there soon. Congrats again." Mark felt happy. He had not felt this relaxed in a long time. At around 6 p.m., the first friend arrived. They hugged quietly and smiled. "Nice place," the friend said. "Thanks," Mark replied. "Let's keep it chill." More friends came. They laughed softly. They talked about work, life, and memories. Someone played calm music at low volume. Everything was peaceful. The garage door stayed open, but the sound stayed inside. Mark checked his noise app again. Still low. Across the street, Karen watched the cars. One by one. She counted them. 1, 2, 3. Her jaw tightened. She took out her phone and started recording. She zoomed in. She zoomed out. She waited for noise. But there was none. This made her angrier. She wanted proof. She wanted chaos. But Mark gave her nothing. Karen stepped outside her house and walked slowly near Mark's driveway. She pretended to check her phone. She listened. Soft laughter. Soft music. Normal voices. Nothing illegal. Nothing wrong. Karen's hands shook slightly. "This is unacceptable," she whispered. She went back inside her house and opened her laptop. She checked HOA rules again. She read them carefully this time. And that's when she saw it. Small gatherings were allowed. Music before 10 p.m. was allowed. Garages could be used for personal events. Karen closed the laptop hard. Rules did not matter to her anymore. Control did. She believed Mark was disrespecting her authority. She believed he needed to be taught a lesson. Back in the garage, Mark raised a small toast. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. "This means a lot to me." Everyone clapped softly. Mark felt proud. He felt safe. He felt happy. But somewhere, not far away, someone was making a decision. A bad decision. Karen sat on her couch, phone in her hand. She looked at the screen. She knew exactly who to call. "This party ends tonight," she said to herself. Mark checked the time. It was only 7:30 p.m. Plenty of time. Plenty of peace. He had no idea that in just a few minutes, red and blue lights would change everything. And the party he planned so carefully would become something much bigger. Karen was not used to being ignored. For years, people listened to her. When she complained, things stopped. When she warned someone, they obeyed. That was how the neighborhood worked. Or at least, that was how Karen believed it worked. But tonight was different. Across the street, Mark's garage was still open. The lights were still on. People were still laughing. And no one had asked for her permission. Karen stood near her window, holding her phone tightly. Her fingers tapped the screen again and again. She waited for the music to get louder. It did not. She waited for shouting. It did not happen. She waited for chaos. But there was only calm. That calm made her furious. How are they still enjoying themselves? She muttered. She opened the window slightly and leaned out. Soft voices. Quiet music. Normal laughter. Everything was controlled. Karen slammed the window shut. They think they are smart, she said. They think they can break the rules and smile. In her mind, Mark was already guilty. She walked around her living room fast, like a guard on patrol. Her thoughts raced. He is new here. He thinks he can do whatever he wants. He doesn't respect me. Karen did not see a peaceful party. She saw a challenge. She opened her HOA folder again and spread the papers on the table. She read the same rules for the third time that night. Deep inside, she knew the truth. Mark was not breaking any rule. That truth made her angry. Because if he was right, then she was powerless. And Karen could not accept that. She grabbed her phone and stepped outside again. This time, she walked closer to the garage. She stood at the edge of Mark's driveway. No one noticed her at first. Mark was laughing with his friends. Someone was telling a story. Everyone looked relaxed. Karen cleared her throat loudly. No one turned. She cleared it again. Still nothing. Finally, Mark noticed her. He smiled politely. Hi, he said. Is everything okay? Karen did not smile back. How long is this going to last? She asked sharply. Mark stayed calm. We'll finish early. We're keeping it quiet. Karen looked around, pointing at the lights. This looks like a party. Mark nodded. Yes, a small one. It's allowed. That word hit Karen hard. Allowed. Her face tightened. We don't do this here, she said. Mark remained respectful. I checked the rules. I'm following them. Karen felt her control slipping. She leaned closer. I've lived here for years, she said. I know how things work. Mark replied gently, I respect that. But I'm not breaking any rule. For a moment, Karen had no words. That had never happened before. People usually apologized. People usually backed down. People usually feared her. But Mark did none of those things. He was polite. Calm. Unmoved. Karen stepped back slowly, her eyes full of anger. This isn't over, she said. Mark watched her walk away, confused but calm. Who was that? One friend asked. Just a neighbor, Mark said. Don't worry. But Karen was already worrying. Inside her house, she paced again. Her heart beat fast. How dare he talk back? How dare he stay calm? How dare he follow the rules? She opened social media and typed angry messages in the neighborhood group chat. She deleted them. Typed again. Deleted again. No one was supporting her. That made her feel alone. And dangerous. Karen picked up her phone and scrolled to her contacts. Her finger stopped on one number. The police. She hesitated. If she called and was wrong, it could backfire. But her anger was stronger than her fear. They will listen to me, she said. They always do. She looked outside one more time. The party was still going. Mark was smiling. That smile felt like disrespect to her. Karen's face hardened. This ends now, she whispered. She pressed the call button. The phone rang. 1 time. 2 times. Then someone answered. Karen took a deep breath and spoke. There is an illegal party in my neighborhood, she said firmly. It's loud and unsafe. Every word was a lie. But Karen believed lies were tools. Tools to get control. She hung up the phone and smiled for the first time that night. Back in the garage, Mark checked the time again. Still early. Still peaceful. He raised his drink and laughed. He had no idea what Karen had just done. No idea that help was coming. Not for him, but against him. And when the police arrived, the truth would come out. In ways Karen never expected. The music stopped first. Not because someone turned it off, but because everyone felt something change in the air. Mark was mid-sentence, smiling, when he saw it. Red lights. Blue lights. They flashed against the walls of the garage, slow and bright. The laughter faded. The talking stopped. Silence filled the space. Someone whispered, "Is that police?" Mark turned his head and looked toward the street. 2 police cars were pulling up. His heart skipped. Not because he was guilty, but because police never meant peace. Mark raised his hand gently. "Everyone, it's okay. Let me talk to them." Still calm. Still respectful. The officers stepped out of their cars. One was tall and serious. The other looked tired, like he had worked a long shift already. They walked toward the garage. Across the street, Karen's front door opened slightly. She watched from the shadows, phone in hand, a small smile on her face. Finally, she whispered. The officers stopped at the entrance of the driveway. "Evening," the taller officer said. "We got a noise complaint." Mark nodded. "Good evening, officer. I'm the homeowner." The officer looked around. Chairs. Snacks. People standing quietly. "This is the party?" the officer asked. "Yes," Mark replied. "It's a small gathering. We're keeping it low." The tired officer glanced at his partner. "This doesn't look loud," he said. Mark stayed calm. "I checked the rules. Music is allowed until 10 p.m. It's only 7:40. He showed his phone. The noise meter app was still open. Low level. "No problem." The tall officer nodded slowly. "Who called this in?" he asked. Mark did not answer. He already knew. Across the street, Karen stepped outside. She raised her hand and walked over fast, like she had been waiting for this moment. "I did," she said loudly. "This is unacceptable." The officers turned to her. Karen pointed at the garage. "This party is disturbing the neighborhood. It's dangerous." The tired officer looked confused. "Ma'am, it's very quiet." Karen crossed her arms. "It doesn't matter. Parties are not allowed here." Mark spoke calmly. "They are allowed. I checked." Karen snapped her head toward him. "You don't know the rules like I do." The officer raised his hand. "Let's slow down." He asked Karen, "Are you part of the HOA board?" Karen hesitated. "No," she said. "But I report issues." The officer nodded. He asked Mark for ID. Mark handed it over without hesitation. He asked about permits. Mark showed printed HOA rules. Everything was in order. Karen's confidence started to crack. But the lights," she said. "And the cars." The tired officer looked around again. "Cars are parked legally," he said. "Lights are inside a garage." Karen's voice rose. "This is my neighborhood." The officer looked directly at her now. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "this is a legal gathering." Karen's face turned pale. "That's not possible," she said quietly. Mark stayed silent. He let the truth speak. The officers stepped aside and spoke softly to each other. Karen could not hear them, but she could see their faces. They were not impressed. The tall officer turned back. "Ma'am," he said, calling police for a false complaint is serious. Karen froze. I wasn't lying, she said quickly. I felt unsafe. The tired officer shook his head. There is no threat here. Karen's hands began to shake. Across the street, neighbors started coming outside. They watched. They listened. Whispers spread. That's Karen again. She calls police for everything. Poor Mark. Karen noticed. And for the first time, she felt exposed. The tall officer gave Mark his ID back. You're good, he said. Enjoy your night. Mark nodded. Thank you, officer. Then the officer turned back to Karen. We need to talk, he said. Karen swallowed hard. Her plan had failed. Not quietly. Not secretly. But in front of everyone. The red and blue lights kept flashing. Not on Mark's garage. But on Karen's face. And she knew. This was only the beginning of her regret. The street no longer felt quiet. Doors opened. Porch lights turned on. Neighbors slowly stepped outside. People did not come because of noise. They came because of police lights. Mark stood near his garage, calm but alert. His friends stayed silent behind him. No one argued. No one panicked. Karen stood near the officers. Her face was stiff. Her lips were tight. The confidence she had moments ago was gone. The tall officer spoke first. Ma'am, he said, we need you to explain the complaint. Karen nodded quickly. There was loud music. Too many people. It felt unsafe. The officer looked at her carefully. We checked, he said. The noise level is low. The gathering is legal. Karen's eyes moved fast. But this happens all the time, she said. He keeps inviting people. Mark looked surprised. This is my first gathering, he said calmly. The tired officer turned to Karen. Do you have proof of repeated issues? He asked. Karen opened her phone. She scrolled fast. Too fast. Photos appeared on the screen. Mark taking out trash. Mark talking to a neighbor. Mark standing in his garage, alone. The officer frowned. These are not violations, he said. Karen's voice cracked. You don't understand. I'm trying to protect the neighborhood. At that moment, a neighbor stepped forward. It was the old man from across the street. That's not true, he said. Mark is respectful. Another neighbor joined. He helped fix my fence, a woman said. He's quiet. More voices followed. He follows rules. He's polite. He's never loud. Karen turned slowly. She had not expected this. The tall officer raised his hand to calm everyone. Ma'am, he said to Karen, have you called police before? Karen hesitated. The silence felt heavy. The tired officer checked something on his tablet. Yes, he said. Multiple calls. Same address. Same neighbor. Karen's face drained of color. The truth was no longer hidden. This looks like harassment, the officer said. Karen shook her head fast. No, I was just being careful. The officer sighed. False reports waste time, he said. And resources. Mark stayed quiet. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. He simply stood there. Karen's hands trembled. But he challenged me, she said suddenly, pointing at Mark. He talked back. The neighbors gasped softly. The officer looked confused. Talking back is not a crime, he said. Karen realized too late how bad that sounded. The tired officer spoke again. We are giving you a warning, he said. Any more false calls could lead to charges. Karen nodded fast. Yes. I understand, she said. But her voice was weak. The officers turned back to Mark. Sorry for the trouble, the tall officer said. You did nothing wrong. Mark nodded. Thank you. The police cars slowly drove away. The lights faded. But the damage stayed. The neighbors looked at Karen. No one spoke. No one smiled. Karen felt something she had not felt in years. Shame. She turned and walked back toward her house. Her steps were slow. Heavy. Behind her, Mark's friends relaxed again. Someone laughed softly. The party restarted. But something was different. The neighborhood had seen the truth. Karen was not the protector. She was the problem. From her window, Karen watched the garage again. But this time, she did not feel powerful. She felt small. She knew people were talking. She knew the HOA board would hear about this. She knew her image was broken. All because of one call. One lie. One moment of anger. Karen sat down on her couch and stared at the wall. This was not supposed to happen, she whispered. But it had. And the worst part? This was not the end. It was only the beginning of the consequences. The next morning, the neighborhood felt different. Not louder. Not messier. Just different. Karen woke up early, as she always did. She opened her window and looked outside, ready to watch the street like she had done for years. But something felt wrong. No one waved at her. The old man across the street ignored her. The young couple walked their dog without looking her way. Even the mailman avoided eye contact. Karen closed the window slowly. For the first time, she felt invisible. She checked her phone. The neighborhood group chat was full of messages. Not about Mark. About her. Police again? This is getting out of hand. False calls are serious. We need to talk to the HOA board. Karen's hands shook. They don't understand, she whispered. I was protecting them. She tried to calm herself and made coffee. But the coffee tasted bitter. Everything felt bitter. Later that day, an email arrived. From the HOA board. Subject, urgent meeting request. Karen stared at the screen. Her heart sank. She had always attended HOA meetings with pride. She spoke loudly. She corrected people. She felt important. This time, she felt afraid. The meeting was scheduled for that evening. Karen spent the day pacing. She looked at her notebook. The same notebook where she wrote complaints, dates, and names. It suddenly looked ugly. That evening, she walked into the HOA meeting room. People stopped talking. Silence filled the room. Karen sat down slowly. The HOA president cleared his throat. We need to discuss last night, he said. Karen tried to speak. He raised his hand. We reviewed the police report, he continued. And past complaints. Karen's face grew hot. There is a pattern, he said. One homeowner. Many calls. No violations. Karen's voice was small. I was just following rules. A woman on the board shook her head. Rules are for safety, she said. Not control. The word hit Karen hard. Control. That word described her perfectly. The president sighed. We are removing your informal authority, he said. You are no longer allowed to act on behalf of the HOA. Karen's eyes widened. This is unfair, she said weakly. Another board member spoke. You embarrass the neighborhood, he said. And yourself. The meeting ended quickly. No one stayed to talk to her. Karen walked home alone. Her steps echoed in the quiet street. At home, she sat in her living room. The walls felt closer. She looked at the street through her window again. Mark's house was calm, normal, peaceful. Just like always. Karen felt a tight pain in her chest. She remembered how she used to enjoy watching people. Now, she felt watched. People knew her for the wrong reason. The next few days were worse. Neighbors avoided her. Children stopped playing near her house. Someone even wrote in the group chat, "Let's stop calling police for personal anger." Karen closed the app. She felt lonely. Very lonely. One afternoon, she saw Mark outside. He was helping another neighbor again. Karen hesitated. She wanted to speak. She wanted to explain. But her pride stopped her. She turned away. That night, Karen sat in the dark. No TV. No phone. Just her thoughts. For the first time, she asked herself a hard question. Was I wrong? The answer hurt. Yes. She had crossed a line. And now, she was paying the price. Karen realized something important. Power given by fear never lasts. Respect earned by kindness does. She leaned back on her couch and closed her eyes. Tears slowly filled them. She whispered softly, "I went too far." Outside, the neighborhood remained calm. Peaceful. The way it always was. The way Karen never allowed it to be. And now, she had to live with that truth. Time passed. The street returned to its normal rhythm. Cars came and went. Lawns were cut. Dogs barked softly in the distance. But one thing had changed forever. Karen. She no longer stood behind her window with crossed arms. She no longer carried her notebook outside. The woman who once watched everyone now stayed inside. The neighborhood had moved on. Mark continued his life the same way. He worked. He came home. He stayed respectful. But now, neighbors greeted him more warmly. People waved. Some stopped to talk. They trusted him. One afternoon, Mark received a letter. Not a warning. A thank you. The HOA board invited him to join a community group. They wanted more balance. More fairness. Mark smiled and politely declined. "I just want peace," he said. That was all he ever wanted. Across the street, Karen watched from her window. This time, she did not feel angry. She felt regret. She saw Mark laughing with neighbors. She saw kindness. She saw what she could have had. But she chose control instead. One evening, Karen stepped outside. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and soft. Mark was watering his plants. Karen took a deep breath and walked toward him. "Mark," she said quietly. He turned. For a moment, neither spoke. "I owe you an apology," Karen said. Her voice shook. "I was wrong," she continued. "I let power control me." Mark listened. He did not interrupt. "I caused trouble," she said. "And I'm sorry." Mark nodded slowly. "Thank you for saying that," he replied. That was all. No anger. No revenge. No lecture. Karen felt a weight lift from her chest. Not everything could be fixed. But something had changed. That night, Karen sat by her window again. But this time, she did not watch to judge. She watched to understand. She realized the lesson too late, but it was clear now. Rules without respect become weapons. Power without kindness becomes poison. The neighborhood did not need a guard. It needed a neighbor. Karen closed the curtain. Outside, laughter drifted softly through the street. Not loud. Not wild. Just human. And for the first time in a long while, Karen let it be. Sometimes, the people who try to control everything lose everything instead. And sometimes, the quiet ones Win without fighting.
Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed it.